Okay. Do we have an ETA on Commissioner Sheldon before I kick this thing off?
I didn't hear anything.
Okay. Well, we'll see if he comes along. I'm going to go ahead and call to order the pre-meeting for the Planning Commission, December 15th, 2020. Currently, we have 6 members of the Planning Commission present. Just really quickly, I'm going to read this quick statement. Due to the increased threat of serious illness and loss of life by the rapid spread of the COVID-19 virus, the chair of the Western Planning Commission has determined that conducting this Planning Commission meeting at the City Hall or at another anchor location is likely to contribute to the spread of COVID-19 and would present a substantial risk to the health, safety, and welfare of the city's residents, participants, and observers. Therefore, pursuant to Utah Code 52-4-2074, the Western Planning Commission hereby declares that the meetings of this public body will be held only electronically until further notice. This determination will expire in 30 days from the date the chair of the Planning Commission signs the written determination. Looks like we've been joined by Commissioner Shelton, so we're all now accounted for. It's not a real heavy meeting. I think we have some training today. Is that right, Duncan?
We do.
Good. Let's get through this part really quickly. I think we can dispense with this, the agenda really quickly so we can give Duncan the full time. Any questions about anything on the agenda tonight, guys? All right. We're going to go ahead and move past that part and let you go ahead and take over here, Duncan. The rest of the time is yours.
Okay, great. I think you probably received the email earlier today from Julie, which is the same as what is on the screen right now. Basically, we're talking about ethics today, and in particular, the Municipal Officers and Employees Ethics Act, which applies to all elected or appointed officials or employees. So it applies to the mayor, it applies to all 7 of you as Planning Commission members, it applies to Julie, Larry, and I as employees. Basically, anybody working for a city, even if they're on just a regular committee, they're all subject to this act. And I'm only going to cover 2 things, accepting gifts first, and then conflicts of interest in general next after that. And we've talked about gifts before. I think I did a training about 1.5 years ago, maybe covered some of the same material. But basically, at some point while you're a Planning Commission member or government official, somebody's going to offer you a gift. And most of the time it's going to be in good faith. They're going to not realize that you cannot accept gifts. And they're just, maybe they just want to say a sincere, genuine thank you or whatever. But then you've got to just kind of keep in mind how it works. And I just kind of summarized there that Utah Code section 10-3-1304. But basically, you can't use your position to get a gift or a privilege for yourself or somebody else. And you can't accept a gift that would cause you to do something or reward you for doing something. And so that's just something to think about. If somebody gives you something, think to yourself, is this causing me to do something that I would not normally do? Am I getting this just because I'm in this position? Is it a privilege that somebody else would not get if they weren't a Planning Commission member? And then we have this $50 rule that if you get an occasional little gift of $50, then, for the most part, it's probably fine. But if you look down towards the bottom of the page, where it says the points of caution, it says first, the $50 safe harbor provision focuses on the value, not the face amount. So if somebody says it's only a $50 value, but it's or $50 cost, but it's really $100 value, you probably shouldn't accept it. And then the other thing is that you, like it says on that second point, is if it's not being offered to the public at large and you're just getting it because you're a government official, you probably should not accept it, even if the value is under $50. And so that's just something to keep in mind. And maybe ask yourself the question, maybe two questions. Is this worth more than $50? And am I getting this just because I'm a government official and is no one else likely to get it? And then that third point there is that, if there's any kind of question and you're not feeling good about it, then you already know what the answer is, right? You should just turn it down and not accept it. But there's a definition of gift there, but a gift is money, a good, a service, a privilege, just anything of value. Or it's even maybe somebody charging you less for something. Could be in a sense a gift. So any questions on gifts, the way I've described it or the way you've heard it before in your role as a planning commission member?
Hey, Duncan, just from my perspective, if somebody's offering you a gift in an attempt to influence, I would then report that, because that could meet the statute definition of bribery.
Yes.
So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. No,
I doubt we'd see it, but
yeah, if it's definitely obvious that somebody's giving the gift for that purpose, you're probably best to report that. That's exactly right.
I have a quick question for those commissioners who have been on the City Planning Commission for longer than myself anyway. Has this ever come up or been an issue for you?
No.
No.
I'm officially at 6 years at the end of this month. The answer is no.
Okay.
Doesn't mean it won't, but the answer is no. So far, nobody's cared enough about me yet.
I've not had it come up yet for me, but I just thought, I'm just curious to know if this is, if I'm going to really have to worry about this, or is it just something we're going through just in case?
It's more of a just in case, but it's one of those things that if you haven't pre-programmed yourself, you'll be taken off guard and you won't know what to do. Like one time when I was a city manager for a small city, and we completed a big project with the developer, and then the developer's attorney went to give me a couple of weeks later a pair of jazz tickets. They weren't just regular tickets, they were box seats, and I'm thinking, oh my heck, these are probably $500 each. It's probably $1,000 right here. And so of course I had to turn them down, right? Not accept them. And I just graciously said, thank you, appreciate it, but no, I'll have to decline. But so it can happen, but because I'd already pre-programmed myself, I knew what my response was, right? And clearly that's not bribery, right? Because the decision had already been made by the decision makers. This was after the fact. So it doesn't meet the definition of bribery. Nothing I really had to report, even though I still disclosed it to my mayor and council with the fact that I'd turned it down. But I don't think that particular person meant anything by it, but it still could be perceived to be a reward, right? And it's way beyond $50 in value. So it's, like I say, it's just a matter of if and when it happens, you know what to do.
And it certainly could influence you if you ever came across dealings with that person again in the future. And so.
Right. Exactly. So then we're going to talk about conflicts of interest in general, which is really the main part of the ethics law. And a lot of it, there's a lot of confusion on that, because sometimes people think that just because they know one of the business owners or the applicant, that somehow that's a conflict of interest. It's really not. It doesn't meet the terms of the definition of a conflict of interest. And when we talk about conflict of interest, it means there's two different interests, right? And they might be going in opposite directions. The one interest is our personal interest. And then the other interest is well, there's three interests really, right? Our personal interest, the city's interest, and some business interest or some applicant's interest. And what we don't want to do is have our personal interest or a business interest that we're involved with affect our interest in what we do in working for the city. Because as a city official, it should be all about the city, right? It shouldn't be about our personal interest or a business interest. So what it really comes down to, for the most part, is money, right, or value. And like that first bullet point, and what we're talking about with conflicts of interest is disclosure, for the most part, and two types of disclosure, like it says in the middle of the page. There's a sworn written statement that you file with the mayor, and then or whatever appropriate office, and then orally in the open meeting where you guys are planning commission members. And what I mean by that is, let's say that one of these things applies here, and let's say you own 25% of a business, and that business comes in front of the planning commission with an application, or that their main offices are located here in the city, and they come in with a land use application and it's on the agenda. Well, first of all, when you first became a planning commission member, if you knew that you worked for a business that's in the city, or you work for a business where you have an ownership interest, a significant interest, then you probably would have filled out that disclosure form, right, when you became a planning commission member, and then it goes to the mayor's office or whoever the mayor designates. And that's just kind of kept on record if and when it's needed. And then once an item actually comes on the agenda, best practice is you also disclose it in the open meeting to the rest of the group. And there was one of you that did that oral disclosure at one point. And once that disclosure is made, you can still then appropriately act on the agenda item. It's not required that you recuse yourself. Some people will go the extra mile and just say, hey, so I don't have to worry about balancing all these interests, I'm just going to choose to recuse myself and not be involved in the discussion or voting. But usually that's not required if you've done all the proper disclosures. If you've filed your written disclosure and you've made your oral disclosure in the meeting where the relevant issue is being discussed, then you've usually met the criteria of the statute. But like I say there, the first bullet point is a business entity involved with a transaction. So they've got something on your agenda. Another one is if you're an officer or director or agent for a business entity that's subject to the regulation of the city, or it's doing business with the city, or there's some other personal interest or investment which creates a conflict. Like I say, for the most part, they're pretty much money type interests. And then you usually disclose the nature of the conflict. So you'd say, well, I'm a 10% owner of ABC company that's on Redwood Road, or I work for ABC company and they're a developer, and sometimes they develop units, dwelling units here in West Jordan, or whatever. You just kind of disclose that on your written disclosure, and then when it comes up in the meeting, you orally disclose it again. So any questions on that, on how conflicts of interest work? Okay. And like I say, if you go through that list there, you'll know if there's something that applies. If you have any question as an assistant city attorney, I can privately go through that with you and give you some advice if you'd like. It's totally up to you. And then, of course, the penalties for violating the ethics law, whether it's accepting a gift or a regular conflict of interest or something else. The worst case scenario is you could lose your position or job, you could be charged with a crime. the thresholds are really easy to reach, and that's why it's so serious. I mean, if it's $250 or more, that's a felony, right? Less than that's a misdemeanor. So in my case, turning down those jazz tickets, I avoided a felony, right? That's something to consider. So, so then if we could just look at those closing points there, then we can just have whatever other discussion. But if we scroll up, so again, it applies to all elected or appointed officials, all employees, government employees. And like it says there in the second bullet point, we're held to a higher standard, right? And I think sometimes government officials get it all backwards. Sometimes, especially if somebody's in a position long enough, they almost feel like they're entitled to something or whatever. And it's like, no, we have to think in terms of the public is held to one standard, and we're held to a very, very, very much higher standard. And so, we have to be so much more careful then. And that's the way it should be, right? Because there is the issue of what we refer to sometimes as fiduciary duty. And that's mainly for the mayor and city council, where they're actually in charge of, millions of dollars of taxpayer money, and they have to treat it much better than they would treat their own money, according to very high standards. And even though we're not spending money, there is, like I say, there are these money type situations with a gift, or if we have a business interest or whatever, same type of issue where we have to be very, very careful when there's anything of value or money involved. And like the very last bullet point, I think is the most important one, is you've got a conscience, you've got the ability to ask questions, you've got me to give legal advice. And if you're ever in doubt, the most important thing is just don't do it, right? Just like the tie goes to the runner, the tie goes to just don't do it. Just like Nancy Reagan said, just say no, right? Works for more than just drugs, works for some of these issues too. Another issue that comes up that's kind of related is when somebody, and this one's more likely to happen, and I'd be absolutely shocked if you got through a 3-year term and this didn't happen at least once. And it may not technically be a conflict of interest type issue, but it's still good to avoid the appearance of impropriety. If you're in Walmart or you're in some random store and somebody comes up to you and says, hey, what about the planning commission meeting next Tuesday? You've got an issue about such and such a thing about ABC subdivision. What do you think about it? Your proper response is to not reply, right? And just say, well, yeah, sure, come to the meeting. We'll talk about it there. Because other than just general things about what you do in general as a planning commission member, which is probably fine to talk about, it's really a best practice to not discuss specific agenda items that are going to be on the planning commission agenda with members of the public outside of the planning commission meeting itself. It's usually best to just encourage them to come, give their comment there. And the reason why is, and we'll have additional training probably in January about the Open Meetings Act again, but the business of the public should be done in public, right? It shouldn't be done in Walmart or some at a gas station. It should be done in the open meeting where everybody else can hear the same question and the response. So, but any questions on anything else I just described?
It's never happened to me that I've been in Walmart or anywhere anyone's asking any questions. I'm in my 4th year, so
wow,
I guess they don't get out much, or maybe.
That's good. And again, it's one of those things, you're prepared if it happens, you know how to respond. If it doesn't happen, that's great. At least you.
So Duncan, maybe for a preparedness side of things, I'm coming up with 2 situations, but from my personal employment. which also happens to be government related. What would you recommend doing in a situation if somebody mailed you a gift?
Okay. And it's over $50 or
Yeah.
or it meets any of the criteria we're talking about. It's not just like a $1 or $2 pen, right? It's something more. That's always a tougher one, right? It's always easy when somebody drops a Christmas gift off at the office that's a big basket. You can just turn it over to the whole office, right? And there's 20 people in the office and you didn't accept it personally. That's always the good way to get out of that one. They've already dropped off the fruit basket and can't really give it back. Then, well, you just turn it over and let everybody eat it. But yeah, when they've mailed it to you, what do you do? It's a tough one. But I mean, it sounds crass, but you can always put right return to sender on it, and drop it off at a post office and send it right back. But just with a,
I wouldn't foresee that happening here.
Yeah, I've never actually had that happen to me. I've always thought about it hypothetically, like you just described. What would I do? And that's what I thought I would do. I've had it happen numerous times where I've had, like I say, the gifts at Christmas come by to me personally, and I just turn them over to the office. Or like my boss here at the city, what he did once is he just turned the gift over and put it into a drawing. Same kind of thing. He didn't accept it personally because he wasn't able to give it back, so to speak. So, there's always an option, right, to somehow not personally accept it. And if it's not giving it back per se, there's some way to maybe turn it over to a larger group of people or something like that. But and if something like that happens, I'm always able to brainstorm it with you and look at some options.
Yeah, unlikely, but always interesting. And like I said, my other work, that has happened a few times, and we've handled it very similarly, where it's you give it away to somebody else in the office or do something of that nature.
Yeah, turn it over to charity or whatever. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay.
Good job, Duncan. You filled all the time.
All right.
You
I can
did it.
filibuster just as good as any senator can.
Well, good. Maybe you have another role after you're done with this career, right?
Not senator, though, something else.
Even at the state level, we'd all vote for you. Okay. Well, we got a few minutes. So if you need to get a drink refill, go right ahead. Sorry about that.
One of these days, I'll get to see you guys all in person.
With the vaccine being disseminated, hopefully it will be soon.
I know.
Of course, after next week, I'll be immune anyway, so you can come hang out with me.
Yeah, do you have it?
Yeah, we're dealing with it right now.
I was I helped my best friend move and she contracted it. She tested positive a couple days later, but even after sleeping in a hotel room with her for 2 days, I never got it.
Oh, that's so nice.
But
Yeah.
I was traveling internationally December, January with my boss who tested positive, and we're pretty sure I had it then. And I was in hotel rooms, cars, dinners while he was sick.
I've got two sisters-in-law who had undiagnosable issues at the end of last year, early this year. They all mirror and mimic the COVID stuff, but it was before we knew what we were looking at. So I think a lot of people got it early and just didn't know.
Yeah, because there's no way I wouldn't have gotten it with my best friend in a hotel room when she had it.
Yeah.
They said they actually first cases that were not diagnosed was in late January in this country, so that's very possible. But there was also a flu that mimicked it that was in December and January also, so it could have been that.
Yeah, it could have been that. But they did say that they suspect Sundance was a hot spot. And I flew in from I went to Europe, Canada, and then flew into Sundance, and that's when I was sick. And they said Sundance was a hot spot. And then as soon as Sundance was over, my boss calls me. He's like, I just tested positive.
That's why Summit County had all those outbreaks, was because of Sundance Festival.
Probably me.
Yeah, way to go.
Well, it was weird because I was delirious for a couple days. Like, I don't remember a couple of the days at all. Like, I have no recollection. My husband was like, do I need to take you in? And I was like, no, what are they going to do? Who knows?
I very much remember everything the last couple of days. A lot of body aches is all it really is.
I remember I was so fatigued. 8 o'clock would hit and I could not for the life of me stay awake at all. Like, I just wanted to sleep.
Yeah, I took my dog for a walk on Saturday, which is what I normally do, but I made it about 20 minutes and then I slept for 2 hours.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah, my best friend and her boyfriend, all they did was sleep, and she lost her sense of taste and smell, and he's a chef.
Oh.
The worst.
I'm sure it's good, honey. I'm sure it's good. That's all you can say, right?
Well, he made some salmon and she was like, this tastes funny, this tastes off. And then it hit her like, oh no. And then a few days later, he made something and he oversalted it so much because she started getting her taste back. And she was like, this isn't right. And he realized that he was losing his taste because he was oversalting it.
Yeah, gross.
What are you doing?
All right, Julie, I've got 6 o'clock. Are you good to go?
Yes.
All right. Everybody back and ready to go? Due to the increased threat of serious illness and loss of life by the rapid spread of the COVID-19 virus, the chair of the West Jordan Planning Commission has determined that conducting this Planning Commission meeting at City Hall or another anchor location is likely to contribute to the spread of the COVID-19 and would present a substantial risk to the health, safety, and welfare of the city's residents, participants, and observers. Therefore, pursuant to Utah Code 52-4-2074, the West Jordan Planning Commission hereby declares that the meetings of this public body will be held only electronically until further notice. This determination will expire in 30 days from the date the chair of the Planning Commission signs the written determination. Once again, welcome everybody to the Planning Commission meeting for tonight, December 15th, 2020. It's our last one of the year. Should be an interesting one for us to get into. So without any further ado, since we've got everybody here, I will go ahead and open up the meeting with the consent item on our agenda. So the minutes from our previous meeting, any conversation or actions regarding the previous meeting minutes?
I'll move to approve those minutes.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner England, seconded by Commissioner Bloom. Any discussion to the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I don't know if Commissioner Shelton's back at his computer yet. Well, we are unanimous with those who voted, so we'll go ahead and move along here. Our first, oh, I didn't realize we had been postponed again. This is going to be a real short meeting. Our first items up are the text amendments that were previously scheduled on our last meeting, moved to this meeting, and now looks like they're scheduled to be moved to the next meeting. I just noticed that. So we just need to take some action on these items and wrap this thing up today, guys.
Commissioner Quinney,
Yeah,
I apologize. I did vote aye. I just pushed the wrong button when I was doing it.
okay. I was watching for your microphone. Okay, we were unanimous in the minutes from the previous item. Any actions on these last two items, you guys? Do them individually, of course.
I would just motion that public hearing number 2, text amendment mining extraction overlay, be scheduled to be continued on January 5th, 2021.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Commissioner England, seconded by Commissioner Thomas. Any discussion to the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're unanimous. And then one more.
Anybody else want to take a crack? I'm losing my voice here.
You're losing your voice.
I'll go at it. I
Please do.
move that we postpone or continue text amendment public hearing number 3 to January 5th, 2021 as well.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner England, once again seconded by Commissioner Bloom. Any discussion to this motion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are unanimous again, and that concludes our meeting. Guys, that might be our quickest one yet. Of course, we didn't have anything to talk about. Anybody else have anything else? What was that, Duncan? Sorry, I didn't hear
I
you.
was just saying that, you need a motion to adjourn is all if you didn't have anything else. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
all right, we are adjourned. Have a good holiday season, guys. We'll see you on the 5th.
Merry Christmas.
Likewise. Keep feeling better, Matt.
Thanks, bye.
5 minutes it was.